Okay, good morning. It's 8 o'clock on Fat Tuesday, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. Probably won't go real long this morning. Just want to get chapter 2 underway here. Don't forget, by Friday midnight, you guys have an assignment due, which is the key terms. Okay, so you can type those out, write them out, and turn those in on Canvas. Okay, so I'm going to try sharing this with you guys. I don't know if this works. It'd be nice if somebody was here. I think this is what I'm doing here. I'm going to try something new here. Okay, so share content, and I'm looking at this right here. Looks like this is going to open. Okay, good. All right, yes. So really with this, I mean, there's 5 sections in chapter 2, guys. So it's quite a bit of information. This first section, the origins of the U.S. government. And in chapter 1, I mean, we looked at different forms of government, and definitely when we talked about John Locke and his influence on, the view of natural rights and so forth was definitely part of the origin of the U.S. government. Social contract would be definitely part of that as well. Okay, but the British system was really the one that we took, the most from. Obviously, the Greeks, the Romans, obviously they're going to play a role in all this as well. But since we were English colonies first, we are going to take a lot from them when it comes to our government, our system, obviously our language, as I'm speaking English right now. So 2 of the main things we get from the English are limited government and representative government. So it's important that we understand how that transpired over time. Okay, so when we look at these ideas of limited government, so prior to 1200, these divine right monarchs had unlimited power. They could tax, they could do whatever they wanted to you, they could jail you without due process. The king answered to no one but himself. Well, guys, by 1215, that's going to change. Okay, and I think you've all probably heard of the Magna Carta. English translation, it's Latin. Is Great Charter. Okay, and basically what this did for the first time, guys, it established the rule of law that the government, or in this case the king, had to follow. He had to follow the law. Now, King John did not want to sign this document. As you could probably understand, a king's not going to want to give up their power like this. But the people around him, which is not Parliament at this point, it's the Catholic Church is very strong there. The bishops, the archbishops, the wealthy, the aristocracy, they're going to put pressure on the king to consider the effects of his decisions on them. Now, this council doesn't really represent the people. They kind of represent themselves in the church. But by doing this, it is going to over 400 years, it's going to force the king to try and reflect the public good. Okay, and we talked about that before, looking out for the public interest when they make decisions. Okay, so that's the Magna Carta, and it establishes for the first time limits on the king or limited government. Okay, so the other is representative government. So this is what I was talking about a minute ago. These council of nobles, religious leaders that advise the monarch. Okay, eventually, guys, this is going to grow into a representative council. When we say representative, that's what we're looking for. The people are looking for representation in the government, to have a say in government. Okay, and that is something that will transpire between 1215 and 1600s, when we see some new English constitutions. The Magna Carta is actually kind of known as their first constitution, okay, their first social contract. And so we're going to get two more that we're going to talk about today that will make us more democratic, more representative, and help lead to the ideas that form our government. Okay. So as we talked about with our system, guys, a bicameral legislature. This is something we took from the British. Okay, so when you look at history here, you can see these two. You got the House of Lords on the left, the House of Commons on the right. And so with this, guys, at the beginning, the House of Lords had all the power, okay, because they were the ones that were close to the king, and the king like was buddy with these people and so forth. The commoners really didn't have much of a say. But guys, as time goes on, those two are going to switch. The House of Lords is going to lose power, and the House of Commons is going to gain power. This process is going to take 400 years. Okay, that's really where we start to see these influences, these early influences on our government, with this switch over time. So I mentioned two other constitutions that the British had. Okay. And we'll start with the Petition of Right. Okay. Now you might remember some of this from world history or maybe even your English class. Okay. But Charles I, he was forced to sign the Petition of Right in 1628, a lot like King John was. Okay. So they'd been living under the Magna Carta. Now I want you to remember something. The first permanent settlement in the New World is Jamestown, 1607. Okay, so the people that came here from England to Jamestown and then later to Plymouth Rock in Massachusetts in 1620, they were all aware of the Magna Carta. Okay, and as the British or the English will come to the New World, the ones that come post 1628, they will be aware of this Constitution. Okay, and as you can see, there are several individual rights that are laid out in this document. Okay. We are not to the point of John Locke yet. He writes his in 1680. Okay. And challenges the king. Okay. But so this limits the power of the king. It's going to give more power to Parliament. Okay. So no false imprisonment. They can't just arrest you. The king can't just arrest you whenever he wants. He can't stick his soldiers in your home, quartering them in your home on a whim. There has to be a war going on. You can't do this during peacetime. Your home is your home. Okay. No military rule during peaceful times, so the king can't just send troops into the streets and have martial law. And then here's a big one, right? No taxation without Parliament's approval. So the king just can't arbitrarily take what he wants from you, your property, and so forth. Okay. So now the people start to have some representation. Their opinions are now heard in Parliament. Okay. So with King Charles I, well, by 1649, he is going to lose his head. Okay, he's going to start violating the Petition of Right. Okay, and so 1649, Charles loses his head. Now, from this is the English Civil War. Okay, from 1649 to 1660, there is no king. You may have heard of this, the Long Parliament, and the leader during that time period was a guy named Oliver Cromwell. Okay. So that did not work out. That was actually, he was kind of like a brutal dictator, this Cromwell guy. Okay. So in 1660, the Parliament said, okay, this isn't working. We're going to bring a king back. All right. So they're going to bring back Charles II, Charles II, which is Charles the first brother. Now he knows if he messes up, he may be losing his head. Okay, but actually Charles was fit for the crown and did fine. But the problem with Charles II was he didn't have a son, and so he didn't have an heir to the throne that was his son. Now, something big happened in between the Magna Carta and the English Petition of Right. And that was called the Protestant Reformation. Okay, so in 1215, there was really only one Christian church, and that was the Universal Catholic Church. But obviously, guys, you've learned about, Martin Luther, you've learned about Calvin and others. And so England is going to change from a Protestant Catholic nation to a Protestant nation, and the Anglican Church, or the Church of England, will become Protestant. Charles II is a Protestant. That's the only way he's going to be served as king. Well, he doesn't have a son. So he does have a brother, though, and that's James II. James II is Catholic, okay? And the Parliament is very weary of this. And so they're going to let James become king when Charles dies. Charles II dies, natural causes, he didn't lose his head. But they warned King James II that, hey, listen, you're not going to be allowed to have any Catholics in your cabinet. And heaven forbid, if you have a son, you will not have him baptized in a Catholic church. Oh, my goodness. So James takes the throne in 1685, and he has a son, and he will ignore the Edict of Nantes, is what they, these rules they put on King James II. And he is going to have a son and have him baptized in a Catholic ceremony. Parliament is outraged. They want his head, and James knows it. They're coming after him. He's going to flee the country. He's going to go to a Catholic-friendly country. He's going to go to France, where the king there is Louis XIV. Okay, and so the British, this is kind of like a soap opera, actually. And so the British need a new king. Okay, and so they're going to invite William of Orange. In class, I would ask you, you guys know where Orange is. Orange is the Netherlands, and he's actually a good fit for a couple of reasons. One, he is a sworn enemy of France, which is Catholic, and the British and the French, they've been fighting all these wars against each other. And Mary, William's queen, his wife, is Mary of Braganza, who is the daughter of James II from his first marriage. Okay, so the bloodline of the royal family can continue with William and Mary. Okay, and if you look at these two pictures kind of closely here, or paintings, this is Mary of Braganza, and this is James II. They actually bear somewhat of a resemblance. Okay, 1688, this is called the Glorious Revolution, and William and Mary are forced to sign the English Bill of Rights in order for them to become king of this great power known as England. Okay, and so they're going to sign it, and here's what the English Petition of Right, or excuse me, the English Bill of Rights is going to provide for us here. Okay, and there it is, written. Okay, 1689. So the king only rules with the consent of the Parliament. This is big. Okay, so now they can petition the king. They can tell the king what they're not happy about whenever they want. Okay, the king cannot use the army or raise an army without the consent of Parliament. This is good. Okay, Parliament should be able to do their own thing without being bullied by the king. Okay, and this document will serve and protect the public, the people. Okay. Now, this has a lot in it that we're going to have in our Bill of Rights. Actually, for our U.S. Bill of Rights, guys, we have stuff from the Magna Carta, we have stuff from the Petition of Right, and we have rights found in the English Bill of Rights. Now, we do have some that are unique to our own, but for instance, the English Bill of Rights allowed for the people to keep and bear arms, which is our Second Amendment. The no quartering of soldiers. Our Third Amendment is found in the Petition of Right. Habeas corpus, which is, you can't be, detained without cause. That sort of thing goes back to the Magna Carta. So this is the 400 plus years of history that the British lived through that we're going to benefit from. So 1689, we're starting to see more and more English, going across the Atlantic to live in the New World. And with them, they bring these ideas, these rights with them that they feel they have on the other side of the Atlantic as well. And so this is, as we move through the growth of the colonies, we'll look at how they set up their governments based on British constitutions, and we'll follow that story as time goes by. Other intellectual influences, when you look at Republican forms of government, okay, because remember, a republic, or when it's Republican democracy or representative democracy. These terms can be kind of interchangeable, but other English or different philosophers, Machiavelli, Montesquieu, were certainly people that were read by the founders of this country. Obviously, the Bible, Judeo-Christian values going from the Old Testament to the New Testament. You have, this is going to have a profound influence on our system. Enlightenment thinkers as well. Adam Smith wrote The Wealth of Nations. You probably learned this in world history class. This is really kind of a statement of capitalism, free markets, self-determination of peoples economic freedom, laissez-faire economics you might have heard of, or the invisible hand of government. And then we talked a lot about John Locke, his view on natural rights, that the legitimacy of government only comes from the people, not from God, challenging this divine right theory. And then Blackstone is of great importance for English common law. If any of you guys think about going to law school, you will definitely be reading Blackstone. Okay, he had a huge influence on the laws of England and the laws of this country. Okay, so these guys are the building blocks of what will become the U.S. Constitution with our own twist on it. Okay, so this is pretty good stuff. I've been going for 18 minutes here. I'll go a little bit longer today. Okay, this goes faster because there's no questions or anything like that. Preston's here. Preston, can you see my screen? I don't know if you're watching.
Yeah, I can.
Do I sound okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. You got any questions?
No, I do not.
Okay. I'm just going to go a little bit longer and get through a couple more slides, okay?
All right, sounds good.
Yep. Okay, so I talked about Jamestown, the first permanent settlement, 1607. Okay, this is a map kind of, I think that was drawn, well, it says 1612. Okay, and then this is a little kind of an aerial view of what the Jamestown encampment looked like. That's in pretty much every American history book ever printed. But Captain John Smith was really the first leader of Jamestown. And this quote, at the beginning, these guys lived, and it's all about survival, right? And if you know the story about Sacagawea, Pocahontas, right? Pocahontas and their relationship, the first Thanksgivings and all this sort of stuff that we learn as kids. There's a lot. I mean, it's all true. I mean, there's this relationship between these settlers and the natives that live here. Some of them are good, and then some of them are going to be bloody. But really, this is about survival, having enough food to eat, being able to stay warm enough in the winter, disease. It's a brutal existence. And what they found was at the beginning, they shared everything. And it was kind of like a commune, like communism, where everybody shared what they made. But Captain John Smith saw that this was not working, and he told the people, he said, "Hey, listen, if you don't work, you don't eat." All right, and that helped the colony of Jamestown, or the settlement of Jamestown, to begin to survive. Okay, so they established, the king gave them a charter to settle there. Okay, so that was 1607. This is before the Petition of Right. This is just under the Magna Carta. So the charters allow settlers to set up their own governments. Guys, in 1607, the chances of being able to send messages back to England and receive those back to the same place in Virginia, I mean, just the navigation here is at the early stages. And it's going to take 6 months to get a message there and back. That's a long time. So they could make their own laws, set up their own assemblies, hold elections, govern themselves. Okay. So this is early on. You have people that are now being born in America. So obviously the first settlers were born in England, but their children are going to be born in America. These are the first, European Americans. And so they know only this self-government. That's what they grow up with. That's what they're used to. And that's what they are going to want in the end. Okay, so I'm skipping, fast forwarding here, guys, because this is government, not history. The 13 colonies will eventually be growing, okay, and more settlers, more and more people being born in the New World, and all of them are going to set up limited and representative governments that they had witnessed in England before they came here. Okay, so over a colony, you're going to have a governor. That governor is going to be in charge. They will be elected. Now, over time, we're going to break up into 3 different types of colonies, and as far as their governments go. Okay, and these advisors, these councils, would hold judicial powers as well. So you kind of had 2 branches of government. Eventually, this will change, and you're going to get 3 types of colonies. Okay, so the royal colonies, and Virginia is one of those, will belong to the crown. Eventually, the king will choose the governor. Okay, rather than them electing their own governor. Then the king will give colonies to like businesses or businessmen, proprietary colonies. Okay, territory granted to the king to an individual or group. Let me give you a couple of examples here. So proprietary, like William Penn established Pennsylvania. Okay, Lord Baltimore established Maryland. A guy named James Oglethorpe set up Pennsylvania, which was actually kind of seen as a penal colony where they sent a lot of prisoners from England and got them out of the jails in England, sent them to Georgia and Maryland and other colonies to work off their sentences, and then they would become free men and women. Okay. So those were proprietary. They were set up as businesses. So the governor would be the proprietor, the guy that owned the colony, owned the business. And I gave you some of those names, okay? And then your charter or independent colonies. These were founded without authorization from the crown. Among these include Massachusetts, okay? So remember the Puritans and the Pilgrims that came to Plymouth Rock in Massachusetts. So they were kind of doing their own thing. They were English, they spoke English, but they weren't really controlled by the king. They understood the king probably had authority over them, but he couldn't exercise that authority from across the ocean. New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island were the other independent colonies. And those are the ones that are really going to cause the king and the parliament the most trouble, okay, because they see themselves as independent, okay, and when the British tend to clamp down, they're not going to respond well, okay. All right, so I think that is a good stopping point for today. About 25 minutes, and you guys have 7 classes today, so I'm going to shut down here, and hopefully back in the classroom tomorrow. I'll pick up from this slide, and we're going to hit kind of this revolutionary era that you guys are familiar with. You're going to get it one more time. This is early American history, and I don't get to teach that except in government class. So I'll do a little bit of that, and we'll pick up from there. Stop presenting, and yeah. All right, I'm gonna stop here. You guys have a good one. Thanks for coming, Preston, and we'll see you soon.